Welcome back to RNG. Today, Isaac and I have created a list of a few gaming opinions we have, and we're going to present them to each other
Absolutely.
and discuss them and see if we agree with each other or not.
5 each for 10
Five,
total.
5 each, 10 total.
Yes.
Easy maths.
Yeah.
All of mine will probably get us blocked from YouTube, so I think you should probably start with one of yours.
All right.
And I have a pen and notes out because I'm gonna be grading Isaac on his
Right.
his
It's really gonna
opinions.
determine
His
if we're still
opinions.
going to be friends.
His opinions of my
It's
opinions.
really going to determine if we're still friends. I
Yeah,
think.
it's kind of important.
Maybe not, but
I think it's pretty important.
all right. You ready?
Yep.
So this first one: remakes and remasters should be excluded from the Game Awards. Like Game of the Year, mainly Game of the Year, I'd say.
Okay.
And this is the reasoning behind it. Maybe I can give you that. In my eyes,
Yeah.
the framework for the great game has already been created. When you remake or remaster, you're going to add in, you're going to modernize the controls. You're going to make the graphics look better. You might throw in a little bone of an extra level here or there, like a little open area like they did with like the RE4 remake, which was fantastic. But I think that isn't enough to truncate it over games that were built from the ground up. I'm not even necessarily arguing that they shouldn't be nominated, but more so that they just shouldn't get it.
Yeah, I would have to say that I kind of disagree and agree in ways. So like also at a point I get with like, for example, like the Paper Mario remake, it's kind of a remake because they did remake all the assets, but there's nothing new in the game. And that's kind of an interesting way that that's a remake, but it's basically
Right.
the same game. Whereas you have Metroid Prime Remastered, which feels like a remake because they completely overhauled the engine and redid stuff, right? They didn't
Right.
add any new content necessarily that I'm aware of, but it's like a completely different looking game as far as graphically.
Right.
And I think the terms remake and remaster are kind of thrown around in ways where, like, I think in certain ways, remakes like RE4, for example, that's like almost, I mean, it's like the same game, but it's like basically game mechanics and plot were there, but it is like basically a new game to an extent.
But the ideas aren't new. The ideas aren't. But like the game as a whole, as of itself, is what it was when it came out,
Right.
all that time ago. Sure, again, they modernized the controls, they modernized the graphics, and they added an open lake area in kind of in
Yeah.
like it or in like in the game or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not trying to take away from that game, but
Yeah.
to me, a game that's been brand new, built from the ground up, unless there's truly nothing better, I
I
can't.
have one rebuttal question. Do you not think that game was built from the ground up?
Well,
RE4?
graphically, it was built from the ground up, and like when they added in the areas, it was built from the ground up, but the ideas were already there. The
Right.
game was already
But
made.
do you think all of the mechanics they just drag and dropped into a new engine? Like at a coding level, like the developers, do you think, the idea is there to like shoot and run and jump or whatever it is you do in RE4
Well, no.
because I haven't played it. Even if it's a remake of an existing idea and game, it is still an impressive amount of work.
Oh, I do.
make that
Yeah, I'm not
game.
trying to take
No,
that.
and I know.
Not trying
and
to take
that's
that
why
apart.
that's where my push for it still being
But maybe like a better.
able to
Try
be
again.
nominated
Oh yeah.
for Game of the Year is still valid.
Oh yeah. That's what I said. I said it was nominated. Like I was
or
here for
even to
nominated.
win.
But I think I would almost rather see like without the amount of remakes and remasters that we get,
Right.
like
and
a
not all of
separate
them
category.
deserve nominations.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But I think, I would have to probably. There's some standouts, but obviously, like, for example, like they just announced the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster.
I
and
think,
it's,
yeah.
like they're all new. Like I don't know. Sometimes it feels unnecessary, but when you have like 20-year-old games that are getting
different.
basically
Remade,
recreated,
yeah.
I think it's worth having it in the category and potentially even winning. But
I don't think there's any reason to have 8 Last of Us Part 1s.
right, and that's a different
kidding.
discussion. But no, agreed. I don't think that needs to happen.
But all right, we can move on. We could say
Yeah.
that you're a little bit on the fence. Do you want to rotate?
Yeah.
Or do
No,
you want me to just
I
go
will
through
full
mine?
hard disagree on that. I'm not on the fence.
Oh, you said you were on the fence, right?
Well, on the fence because I don't think they all deserve it, but I think if I had to choose a stance, I
yeah,
would
it's tough when you have a
disagree.
blanket statement of
Yeah.
everything. You know.
Yeah. Let's rotate. All right, so my first opinion is that Xbox is only alive because of Game Pass. And before you disagree or agree, let me say, I think it's a pretty obvious
yeah.
statement. Sony is selling, like, even though Sony has no games, is the meme, Sony is still selling, like, I think it's like 3 times the amount of consoles Xbox is. And I couldn't tell you the last time I was in tune with anything Xbox is releasing to care about being like, yeah, I should get a Xbox for this.
Right.
There was some like super cool, like the only IP that Xbox produces currently that I would care about is like Halo, potentially.
Right.
Because I'm not like a big racing guy. Maybe that's just on me, but I don't know if anyone's buying an Xbox just to play Forza, even though it is an amazing racing game from what I've heard. But,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you?
I agree with that one. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, Game Pass is pretty excellent. I don't.
Game Pass is great. Not to shit on it that it's not good, because it is a great way to like get a bunch of games, and they release a lot of stuff day one. But
Right. No, I agree with that one. That's I don't even really think there's much like on the fence about it. Like I mean I don't know.
yeah,
I do agree though I do think, kind of piggybacking off of that, I wish they would get their poop in a group, because Sony needs competition in order to
they're
flourish.
slacking.
We need competition in the gaming sphere.
The only competition right now is like Nintendo. And
Right.
Nintendo just keeps. I can't stop winning.
Yeah,
Nintendo
right, yeah.
just wins and wins.
Yeah,
So,
I do agree with that. But I think that Sony needs more competition from Xbox in order
Yeah.
to keep pushing along and keep
Yeah.
pushing that envelope. So, but I do agree with that
Yeah.
one.
All right. So that's plus 10 friend points on.
Thank you for writing that down.
Okay, what's your next point?
All right, this live service games should be free to play, and mainly I'm coming off the back of Concord's epic failure. I think in today's day and age, in order for most live service games to succeed, they have to be free, because the barrier to entry is so high. You know, because like, why would you play? You know, a big thing with Concord too was, why would you play this when you can play Overwatch for free? Like, the gameplay's not
But
essentially
Overwatch wasn't free originally.
right, but
they
it
are
is now.
It is now.
And like,
Yeah.
in order to succeed, either you have to build a product that is markedly better than the free games, and even then it's hard to pull, because I mean, you're not talking a difference of, $1
Exactly.
or whatever. It's like, if you want a live service game that has a battle pass or whatever, so you're gonna pay money to get into the game, and then you're gonna have to pay money on top of it to get into.
Concord doesn't have any, to at least in its defense. It doesn't have any battle passes. As
that
an
was just
example,
a piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it's free to play, that gives you your highest shot at making it, because there is no barrier to entry.
I think in today's market, that is fair to an extent. I think I would agree with that in today's market, that it needs to be free to play to an extent, just because your player base, it can be way larger, like you were saying.
Right.
So, I mean, I agree with that, but I think if you think 8 years ago, which is the supposed alleged time of development for Concord, right? That's like when Overwatch came out, roughly, and all these other live service games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I paid for Overwatch. Like, I bought it for $60,
Right.
and it was an amazing game at the time. I don't play it anymore, but it was super fun, and I still bought cosmetics in that game, like loot boxes and stuff, right? But yeah, I think it's just way too saturated nowadays with games out there, like, and even games that don't have live serve or like battle passes. Like Deadlock is a game by Valve that's like a MOBA first or third person shooter game. Super fun. Doesn't have like that kind of stuff in it. Like, it doesn't have a battle pass. So no, I would agree. I think that's pretty easy to agree. Do I get 10 points? 10
you
friend
got 10 points. I'm not writing it down, but you have 10 points in my mind.
My second opinion, and I think it's pretty obvious, but Concord is going to set an example for Sony in the wrong ways. I think that they're going to look at that and be like, oh, it's because we didn't do enough marketing, or it's because we didn't do this. Not because they should be focusing on why people get PlayStations, in my eyes, which is for their exclusive, like, story-based games.
Right.
I think they're going to look at that and just think it's just people don't get it or something, right? Like the higher ups, maybe not the devs. I've heard
Right.
rumors the devs knew it was going to be a fail, but the higher ups kept saying, like, this is going to be our next Star Wars
Right.
type thing, because
Right.
there's that I think it's called First Secret Level, that Amazon show has a Concord episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they definitely thought it was going to be this huge
Right.
success. There
Right.
was already an episode about Concord in the show for a game that doesn't exist anymore,
Yeah.
at least on the shelves. But I don't know. I think they're going to look at that the wrong way, and they're going to end up like cutting a bunch of stuff because they want it to work. And I don't know. I think they're going to look at it the wrong way, and just the higher ups, at least, not
Yeah.
necessarily people that are not tone deaf
Right.
to the market.
Right. I don't know. I think I somewhat might disagree with that one. I think as a company, they'll analyze, I mean, if they're in tune with what the reasons why people didn't play it or didn't buy it or whatever, they'll understand that, oh, we made an oopsie. This is going to be a tax write-off for this fiscal year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we'll use it to offset
The alleged
Revenues
$400
and-
million it took
Yeah.
to make. That number went up because there was some more rumblings
Right.
of developers coming out and saying, like, Sony bought Firewalk,
right.
and then they gave them another $200 million to continue to work on
Right.
the game.
Well, and I think when you have a $400 million mistake like that, you have to take every plausible angle to figure out what went wrong. You know what I
You'd
mean?
think.
Yeah, that's why because I have to disagree a little bit, because
Yeah.
I think they have to go those extra measures to figure out why it failed,
Yeah.
and then work at correcting and see if they can get onto the right track, either with a new IP or whatever the case is.
I'd hope so. I don't want to be cynical and think they're going to take the wrong things from it, but
Right.
when you have like a higher up that's like, before a game's even out, it's kind of like with anything. You don't want to just think like, oh yeah, this is going to be the next big thing. Like, you just make things, and if it clicks, like, think like Among Us was out for like 3 years, and then like COVID happened, it was huge, right?
Right.
You don't just like release a game and you're like, let's do all this marketing and like let's make this live
Right.
like the secret level thing, without people at the top being a little more tone deaf to the fact that like the game itself was just boring.
Right,
Like
right.
like it looked kind of cool, but like
Yep.
the characters just seemed boring and generic, and like
Yep.
I don't know. We could go on and on about it. I
Right.
don't want it to be explicitly about
Right.
like Concord, but yeah. So okay, yeah. So that's a disagree. So it's -10. You're at 0.
Ah,
here.
dang it! I knew this would happen.
I'm not discouraging you from disagreeing, but it should be discouraging.
It's fair.
Okay, what's your next one?
A 7 out of 10 game isn't a bad game. And I think a lot of this resides in the fact that I think a lot of people think a 7 out of 10 game is mediocre. I think a lot of people think that, when a game comes out and like I said, it's a 7, they're like, well, this game's awful. Why would I want to play it? Like, I feel like, a 7 out of 10 is still worthy of being experienced or being played
Right.
in most circumstances.
Yeah.
But I feel like people just look for those, like, if it's not a 9 or a 10, it's not good. And I think
Yeah.
that's disingenuous to video games as a whole
Yeah,
in general.
I think overall I'd probably agree with that, because I think people pay attention too much to what people review things as, like,
Right.
and I used to do that too. Like, I'd pay more attention to like reviews from like IGN, for example, or other
Right.
places. But it's like there's been games where they've put out 6, 7s, and I'm like, it's probably like 7, 8, late 8,
Yeah.
And I think most games, because it's like that reviewer could just not like that genre, or
Right.
be not as in tune with something in that game.
Right.
And,
Or they could hold a personal belief about something,
Right.
and then like that impacts the review a little bit.
right. And it's like they can go the reverse way too, where it's like,
Oh yeah,
there's been games that IGN reviews that are like 8s or 9s, and then like you see all the other Metacritic reviews are like 6s and 7s.
Right.
And it's like sometimes they just like
right.
will push it up.
Prime
for
example I can
example.
think of is like Deathloop.
Yeah, game's boring.
Yeah, I didn't. I
Sleep.
wasn't vibing with
Tried
that game.
playing it, sleep.
Right, and that's when that IGN like reviewed very
Yeah, it was
highly.
like an 8
Gave
or
it a
9.
10. They gave it a
or
10.
something. They gave it a 10.
They gave it a 10, and it was like, I just didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
no.
vibe with it like that. But
It's always that meme of like when you see a 7, it's like this game is a masterpiece. If IGN's calling it a
Right,
7, it's a
right.
masterpiece.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree.
beautiful. So that's more friend points for you.
Sweet. My
But-
next one is that after playing Elden Ring, I think it did deserve Game of the Year over Ragnarok. I mean, there was others in that pool,
Yeah,
but
but it
that
was
was
really
kind of the
those
big
two,
two
yeah.
because Ragnarok won like bunch of other rewards
Oh,
or
yeah.
awards for like music and other everything else. So,
Yep.
But after playing it, yeah, it's just, I mean, and you've played it now too,
Mm-hmm.
but it's extremely vast and there's just so much about it that's awesome, that hasn't been already talked to death about. But do you agree?
This is tricky. This is really tricky. I think I'm a little biased towards God of War.
Right.
I will fully admit that. I love those games.
Mhm.
And to me, I wanted Ragnarok to win. But I think I agree in the sense that Elden Ring deserved to win.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I feel like if I had, I would rather Ragnarok win, but I think that's
On
more
a personal bias.
bias.
Yeah,
is
'cause
creeping
that game
in.
is, very emotional. Like you can connect
Right.
a lot with the characters. Like
Right. Like, I will say, I didn't have as much fun in Elden Ring as I had in God of War Ragnarok.
Right.
But that's not to discredit what Elden Ring was able to do and accomplish.
Yeah.
And like that, because I will say, beating a boss in Elden Ring and like finally overcoming it was like
Yeah.
amazing.
It's euphoric.
It's
every
yeah,
time.
every
It's like-
time it's crazy. And it's like that feeling is something that's super special.
Yeah.
But like again, I didn't feel the game as much as I felt the Ragnarok.
Yeah,
if
that's
that makes,
fair.
That makes sense. It's like it's kind of like what boat are you going in? Because like
Right. They're both different games.
Right.
I think that like one thing with Elden Ring too is that like there's so much replayability because you can do different classes and different things
Right.
like that. But
Right.
no, I agree. I think they're different games and like emotionally,
Right.
I enjoy the story of Ragnarok.
Right. So I think ultimately I agree with you because I think again personally I wish Ragnarok would have won, but I understand and get why Elden Ring did win. So
Yeah. It's a
I agree with you.
generational game. I think like Elden Ring is just. I mean, it's still not to say Ragnarok isn't talked to you about this day, but there's still things being discovered and used and figured out in that game, and I think it's just super fun.
I think FromSoft even said that like there's one secret that nobody's discovered in Elden Ring yet, and like that's really sweet. So ultimately I agree. I think
Yeah.
I wish God of War Ragnarok would have won, but I think Elden Ring deserved to win.
Yeah, fair. All right, you're back up. Oh yeah, I
I'm up
skipped
10
one
again.
too on accident.
That's okay. You can just call me that. I've already won. It's okay.
All right, what's your next one?
I don't know if this one will receive heat, but Last of Us Part 1 I have is better than The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh yeah, it's a better game.
I think it's a better game.
Better game, better story, more content. Like it's
Yep.
not as scope is a lot smaller.
Right.
The only part I remember about Abby's story in Last of Us 2 is the Rat King and
Yep.
when you're getting like pinned down by the sniper.
Oh yeah.
And I really
That
liked
was a
her
good sequence.
connection and because it was Jesse or Tommy.
Yep.
And then also I like her connection with Webb. It makes it feel like kind of like
Yep.
The Last of Us 1 again. But
Yep.
like stewing on it, a game like The Last of Us 1, I was able to finish and I was like, this game was amazing.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 took me like 6 months to digest and be like, I don't get the hate. You know, like I
Right.
like the game
right.
a lot. I
Yeah.
ended up
It
liking
is a great game. I'm not trying
Like,
to say it's bad.
yeah, no.
But I just think the
gameplay
first
and
one's
AI,
better.
I think is better, but that's not going to necessarily make the game better
Right.
than the first.
Right.
But,
So you and I have I've had conversations with you about The Last of Us Part 2, and one thing that I've said to you is like the scene when after they almost Subuku each other in the theater,
yeah.
they go to the farm, right? And there's a scene where Ellie is holding Dina's baby, and they're in a tractor, and they watch the sunset. I felt the game should have ended there, because then that's the end of the second act, essentially. And the whole
Yeah.
third act is then when Tommy shows up, and they find
Right.
Abby, and then you go and you do that fight at the end. I felt like what I wished I would have had if they just deleted the third act and made more of an impact with the relationship between Joel and Ellie on the first half of the game. I wasn't even mad that Joel died, but I wanted his death to feel like a shot to the heart, not a shot to the head.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
I would even piggyback off that and say that the third act could have been the start of the third game.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It out more because it was a very short section, and I get why they did it.
Yep,
But I think if that would have been, credits on that. All right, there's been so many pet cuts. Let's finish this point off. I think the Last of Us 1 is better than Last of Us 2.
Great, we agree. 10 points.
We agree. All
right,
10 points.
Move to the last one.
Anyways, my fourth one is that I think Super Mario Sunshine is overrated. It is a glitchy mess that has nostalgia.
I'm inclined to agree with that, just from that basis on its.
I haven't finished it, in case my opinion might be not as valid. I played like half of it, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong.
And it's fun.
But it's like, it like has the charm. It loses mechanics from 64, and I think they figured everything out with Galaxy. Galaxy is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
But like Sunshine, I think is just overrated.
I would agree. Sunshine's one I played through a decent amount. Didn't beat it, but I didn't feel like.
Yeah, I wasn't like.
I just wasn't. I wasn't sold on it as much as I've seen
as people hype it up for.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
and that to all the power to them. Again, so, but yeah, I agree with that one.
Sweet, 10 friend points.
Thank God, I'm up to plus 20 now. I can't lose anymore.
I can't stop losing.
I can't stop winning. All right,
yeah. This will be your last.
This is my last one. Ghost of Yate will be a good sequel to Ghost of Tsushima.
Agreed.
I agree. It astonishes me, and again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. I fully respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But it astonishes me how you're going to look at this game, and I think this is the vocal minority. I don't think it's the majority.
It's the loud minority.
But it's the vocal minority, and I think that I don't know how you can look at it and say you're playing as a woman.
Yeah, I
this
know.
This is woke propaganda. I'm not going to play it. It's going to be a terrible game.
I
Okay,
know.
I'm just saying that.
No, I agree.
The game looks gorgeous.
I know.
It looks so good.
I know.
From the little that we've seen. And I think, what I will say, the one wish list item that I have is they want to use this as the start of a franchise. Right. They want it to have more games. They want to make a movie. They want to do this, that, and the other thing, which I'm all in favor for. I think that Ghost of Tsushima is what paved the way for that to happen.
Agreed.
And I think, to me, since it's like in that vein, I feel like they have to have a connection back to that original story.
Agreed. It is like 300 years later, so
right. And that's what I'm just like. And that's why I don't. It feels weird to me to not like to have just Ghost of Tsushima, have it wiped out, and then have nothing ever happen.
Because we don't know enough yet.
Right, and that's why I say wish list. Not. It's not a complaint. It's just a wish list item.
Right.
Of I hope they do something, whether it be playing through like maybe they have like. I've seen like maybe they have like mythical levels where like you go back in time and play through something, or like not necessarily go back in time, but you play through a memory.
Right, like in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Or or maybe there's like maybe during the game you ride your horse by Jin's gravestone.
Right. Yeah. No.
As long I wish, or I hope to see. I hope to see that they have a reference or a callback to kind of that story.
Yeah, agreed.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying again. It's
doesn't
nothing to do with
to be there, but
right.
Well,
and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we're playing as a woman.
Right.
Or I think that game and his story is what paved the way for everything to happen. I can't even say his story because if the game would have been, that story paved the way for what is to be, and like the reception of that game is kind of what brought it on.
Right.
And so I think it'd be cool to have a callback kind of to that game. So you're in agreement on that one?
Yeah, I agree with that. My last one, and this is an opinion, obviously, because we're doing opinions, but I think that gaming is in a weird space where it's like I only care about a handful of releases, and I used to like see more games in like state of plays or like showcases that I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like maybe I picked that up on a sale, but now I'm just like I don't even want to like waste my time on that. Like it just looks generic or boring, but I don't know if that's just like a getting older thing or like my just less free time. But I don't know, like I see certain games and I pop off. I'm like, that looks phenomenal. But then it's like there's just so many more games that fall below even looking mid to me.
Right. I think I disagree with that because I don't think it's a
-10.
I don't think it's like a state of gaming as a whole. I think it's the fact that you and I, like you said, are getting older.
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with the state of gaming. I think it more so has the fact that, I mean, we work full-time jobs. You know, we have things and responsibilities that we have to do. Therefore, I'm not saying our time is valuable, but the games that we decide to spend our time on become more valuable.
Right.
So we place a higher emphasis and a higher weight
Right. It's
to
like
certain
opportunity
games that come
cost.
out.
It's
Right.
like, yeah,
as a kid, it's like, shoot, I don't know if I'll like that game, but I'm going to buy it and give it a shot.
because I have 100 hours during the summer to
Right.
play it. Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
it's like now it's like we don't have the, I don't want to, like, it's like it's harder to find time to just experiment.
and like, yeah.
Unless
and
you're doing
just take a
something like
risk.
gaming reviews for a living or something like that. Unless you're,
Right.
unless you're
that's
like,
your job.
right. Or unless, you know, if you don't have, and I'm not saying, I mean, we're not like, I don't know, we're not like, oh my God, we're like have such hard lives. I don't mean like
Yeah,
that
no,
at
no,
all.
no. It's
That's
just
not
time.
that. Just like
time in general.
as you
is
get older, I
less,
feel like
yeah.
you have more responsibilities
Yeah.
and it's, again, you place more weight on the games that come out. So
Yeah.
I disagree with the sense that it's the state of gaming, but I agree with the fact that there's
Yeah.
less, I'm not as interested in certain games that come out that maybe years prior I would have been.
Fair, yeah. Cool. Well, Isaac had +10 friend points. I don't remember what I disagreed with you. I think I only
You just disagreed with me on the first one, so you got plus 40.
Yeah, so I think
No,
I
30.
won. Yeah.
40. No, 30.
Yeah, it'd be 30 because
Yeah,
I did
30.
-10. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
forgot
yeah,
that.
let us know if you think our opinions are dumb or valid, or if you agree or don't. It'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of these can go either way, but
I do too, yeah.
yeah. So, well, without further ado, I guess thanks for watching.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'd love to see you.
I'll do like a big
next
PNG.
Yeah, just like a. Well, thanks for tuning in. We will see you on the next one. Hopefully.
Goodbye.